Today, the New York Times was first to report that lawyers for the Trump Organization, the president's business, have been informed by New York state prosecutors that criminal charges are now being considered against Trump's business, and they may come very soon.
Donald Trump's own criminal defense lawyer personally warned the embattled president that he could wind up in prison wearing an orange jumpsuit. But the big news here is Donald Trump's former criminal lawyer, John Dowd, who publicly split with the president over their strategy, warning Donald Trump that he could end up in prison. And
no former U.S. president has ever been charged with a crime. So I want to ask you, will he be the first, and who should be the most worried?
Those of us in the news media always want to try and be careful, right, about what might happen when it comes to an indictment. But I'll tell you this, all signs point to a likely indictment. And now you've got this special grand jury that's been impaneled. Typically, you don't get a special grand jury like this unless they believe they have evidence of a crime. So all the evidence, all the signals are towards a likely indictment of someone, if not more than one person.
Former President Trump, the Manhattan DA, informing the former president's lawyers that they're considering filing criminal charges against the Trump Organization as early as next week.
NBC News reporting that the Manhattan District Attorney's Office plans to file criminal charges against the Trump Organization.
The investigation involves whether or not the president's family business paid taxes on certain fringe benefits given to employees or family members, ranging from cars and apartments to private school tuition. Tonight, sources are telling us an indictment could come on the Trump Organization as soon as next week.
Multiple sources telling NBC News Manhattan District Attorney Cyrus Vance is expected to announce an indictment of the former president's company as soon as next week.
This is the grand jury that would determine whether or not there are criminal charges filed against the former president, his family, or his company.
There's a grand jury now. That's news. But again, I'm not getting my hopes up. Remember how many times we thought Trump was on the verge of going down? Remember how everybody at your gym was working out in a Mueller Time t-shirt and now Goodwill won't even take him?
What this nevertheless represents is the very real prospect that the former president will be forced out of business with criminal charges that could come as soon as next week.
It is official, Politico reporting and others. President Trump will reportedly not be charged with any crimes whatsoever in New York, according to the Manhattan's District Attorney Office.
What makes you think they're going to get him this time? There's something about this guy that he slips through because he has enablers everywhere.
Here, we're not talking about Donald Trump as president with the protections that the president has. We're talking about what Donald Trump as private citizen did with regard to real estate deals and possible bank fraud, etc.
As much as I'd like to see him in an orange jumpsuit, I don't know if it's going to happen just because of that. They get protected, they get help, something happens, and they avoid it.
If you just view it as private citizen, if this were any other case, anyone else would be telling you all signals are towards indictment.
So much for all the breathless reporting that Donald Trump would be criminally charged in wearing an orange jumpsuit peering behind steel bars. Reporters who relied on a notorious liar like Michael Cohen and his prediction of Trump's imprisonment now look like the chumps that they are.
I want to let you have an opportunity to respond to Donald Trump's disparagement of you, if you care to.
Well, I really don't care to, simply because it's just typical. It's typical Donald. His racist rants, which we know are just every day.
I've lost count as to how many times the disgusting, liberal, mainstream media have attempted to label Mr. Donald Trump a racist, a xenophobe, and a bigot. Not only is Donald Trump not a racist, he believes that all people are part of one race, the human race.
His racist rants, which we know are just every day.
Not only is Donald Trump not a racist,
his racist rants, which we know are every day, including the fact that he couldn't even mention George Floyd's name at any point in time.
All Americans were rightly sickened and revolted by the brutal death of George Floyd. For George and his family, justice will be served. He will not have died in vain. I want to express our nation's deepest condolences and most heartfelt sympathies to the family of George Floyd. A terrible event, terrible, terrible thing that happened. And I spoke to members of the family.
He couldn't even mention George Floyd's name at any point in time.
The death of George Floyd on the streets of Minneapolis was a grave tragedy. It should never have happened.
President Trump on Fox News Thursday night condemning George Floyd's death.
So I wear it as a badge of honor. So thank you for that, Donald. I appreciate it.
If you rely on a notorious con artist, crook, and liar like Michael Cohen, you're a fool. And if you rely on the media for truth and accuracy about Donald Trump, you're twice the fool.
Says who?
We're talking about Trump himself. He's the founder. His sons, they're the executive vice presidents. And, of course, Ivanka Trump. What happens to all of them here?
As Chuck points out, the fact that the corporation gets indicted or reportedly will be indicted doesn't rule out additional indictments down the road for individuals.
But what they're trying to do here is they're trying to build a tax case against Weisselberg. If that makes him flip against Trump.
Longtime chief financial officer Alan Weisselberg also potentially facing charges as prosecutors ramp up the pressure on him to cooperate with the broader probe against Trump.
How do you see this? I mean, when you look at it as a skilled prosecutor and you say, all right, here's what they're doing. Does it look to you like they're building to something big?
Yes, it does look to me like they're building something big. I mean, look, I think that Alan Weisselberg could be a key figure here. You know, he's already done his deposition with Letitia James's office, and they likely, I think, are going to want to use him in any investigation or prosecution. He could be the key witness against any Trump figure, Trump and or his children. I think he could provide the most valuable testimony.
And Barbara, knowing what you know about Donald Trump after all of these years, do you think he belongs in jail?
Does he deserve to go to jail? I imagine he does.
It was always a fool's errand to try to go after somebody like Trump for tax and real estate fraud because he doesn't fill out his taxes. He doesn't fill out loan applications. He relies on the expertise, the counsel and advice of a team of professionals like lawyers and CPAs and tax accountants and real estate experts. It's exceedingly difficult for the government to prove the intent necessary for fraud if you are relying on the expertise of professionals. So here we have years of an intrusive investigation of Donald Trump, and all you've got, to use Fichetti's term, is pretty small stuff.
Trump himself has not responded to this news yet, but of course he has said many times in the past that he runs a clean business and that this entire investigation is a political witch hunt run by a district attorney, Cy Vance, who is a Democrat.